Hey everybody, it's Eric from epautos.com, your Libertarian car guy. And I thought I'd show you a few of the highlights of the Ford Edge, which is an interesting vehicle in the mid-sized, bordering on full-sized crossover SUV class. It's different in two important ways that actually do give it an edge over some of the other crossovers in its general class. And those two things are as follows. This is a two-row SUV. Some of the others in this class do offer a third row. However, they are very compromised in terms of interior space. They feel pretty crowded as a result because there really isn't that much room in a mid-sized crossover for 3 rows of seats. So what you end up with is a vehicle that has a third row that's extraordinarily tight and useful really for kids who are 12 and under only, and then a fairly narrow second row. And what winds up happening, unless you're constantly using that third row, is that you've got 2 fairly cramped rows of seats for the people who mostly use the vehicle. Ford's idea was to say the heck with the third row. If somebody wants a third row, they can move up to an Explorer, which does offer it. And let's just make the most use of the interior space as we can to carve out an exceptionally generous second row as well as a first row and not worry about carrying 7 people. So you have as much backseat legroom here as you do front seat legroom in some of the other vehicles that are in this same general class. And just to show you that that's not an exaggeration, it's in excess of 40 inches. Now I'm 6 feet 3 inches tall, and I have the front seat here set up for me. So that's back. That is pushed back enough for somebody who is 6 feet 3 inches tall to very comfortably drive the car. And now I'm sitting in the back seat, and just to show you how much room there is between my knee here, check out my lovely chainsaw scar, and the seat back. And just eyeballing it here, that's got to be about 8 inches. So 8 inches for a 6 foot 3 tall guy like me, and if you're under 6 feet 3, you're going to have that much more room. And a couple of very clever things that they've done to maximize the already spacious interior dimensions of this vehicle, and it's kind of hard to see this in the 2D camera, but I'm going to try and show you how the seat backs here are scalloped. They're concave here, so you've got that much more room here, and they've done the same thing here on the door panels. And again, the door panels are kind of concave in that way. So in addition to having a tremendous amount of legroom, you've also got a tremendous amount of shoulder and side-to-side room. It's one of the roomiest vehicles that you will find, not just in this general class, but also actually if you go up into the luxury class, vehicles that cost much more than this thing does. If you go shop something like a Lexus RX, Acura MDX, you'll find this Ford has got a really, really nice cabin relative to those much more expensive crossover SUVs. Now, the second thing that differentiates this thing from pretty much everything else that isn't a luxury badged crossover is that it's got some pretty potent engines. And not only does it have some pretty potent engines, it's got 3 of them. For the most part, most of the vehicles in this class, including the luxury class, if you want to step it up a little bit, only have 2 and sometimes just 1 engine. The Ford has 3, and none of them suck. Oftentimes you'll find that the base engine is on the borderline of being underpowered, and you almost have to upgrade, and not just for power and for performance. For example, if you want the all-wheel drive system, it's often the case that you have to upgrade to the optional engine in order to get the all-wheel drive, because the base engine just isn't strong enough to haul around the additional weight of the vehicle when it's equipped with all-wheel drive. That's not the case here. Regardless of the engine that you choose, you can go with the front-wheel drive or the all-wheel drive. And the standard engine, the base engine, the one that comes in the low-trim models, has 245 horsepower. It's a 2-liter turbo 4, and that would stack up pretty favorably versus a lot of other vehicles' optional engines and their strongest engines. And that goes also for some of the high-end luxury cars. If you go out there and take a look at it, if you go and look what's available, for example, in the current BMW X5, you might be surprised to find out what you're getting here in the Ford. And the next up engine, the mid-range engine, is a V6 without any turbos, but 280 horsepower. That's 20 horsepower more than the Nissan Muranos V6, and the Murano only comes with a V6. It doesn't offer any other engines at all. And compared to some of the more expensive luxury crossover SUVs, that 280 horsepower is pretty solid. It's very close to what you would get in something like a Lexus RX 350, and that includes the F-Sport version of the RX 350, and it's competitive with what you'd get in something like an Acura MDX as well. And if that's not enough for you, there's a third option. The third option, in this particular one that we're looking at here, has that option, is Ford's 2.7-liter V6 with 2 turbos and 315 horsepower. And that's a pretty stout engine. It'll haul this thing to 60 in a little bit over 6 seconds, which is, again, an extremely good number for a vehicle in this class. And the fuel mileage is pretty decent, too, and that's why Ford markets it as the EcoBoost 4. You also get, by the way, a bunch of other enhancements when you get that engine, which is part of the Sport package, including standard 20-inch wheels, variable adaptive steering, and of course the usual suspension enhancements. Pretty neat vehicle. It's actually a crossover that is more than just an appliance. Most of the vehicles in this class are extremely utilitarian. They're great for hauling the family around, going to Lowe's and so on, and this will do all of those things too, but it's also something that's actually got some guts and is pretty fun to drive and won't break the bank. Very interesting if you go and stack this thing up in terms of what it would cost you loaded, for example, versus a Lexus RX 350 F Sport. It's pretty significant. And I get into the specifics of that in my written review, which is up at epautos.com, and I hope you'll come by and take a look. And we should have some additional political rants up for you shortly this week, including something about a little Contra-Tops battle of wills that I'm having with one of the other car companies. Anyway, more details on that will follow. Thanks for viewing, and we will catch up with you again soon.